Hello everyone, my name is Tony Southcott and today we're here to talk about The Exorcist. It's a movie from 1973, a mega hit from William Friedkin starring Linda Blair. And there's so little that I can do for the introduction of this movie because it is one of the most well-known. It's up there as one of the top horror classics of all time. So why not just get to the facts? Fact number 1, the demonic voice took some hard work to attain. Mercedes McCambridge, once dubbed the world's greatest living radio actress by Orson Welles, voiced the demonic version of Linda Blair. Sounding like a demon took some very concentrated effort on her part though. She basically changed her entire diet and lifestyle. She started smoking a lot more. Her entire diet consisted of whiskey and eggs, which honestly sounds like my first few weeks on keto. But she basically transformed herself to make this voice so much stronger and deeper and raspy, and it really paid off. In order to make this more effective, Friedkin actually had her tied to a chair with bedsheets and had her restrained so that she would put more effort into this and make it more sound like a demon struggling against the bonds. Originally, they were going to have Linda Blair's voice edited and made more husky and everything, but there were certain times where it just wasn't powerful enough, so they decided to go this route instead. One of the problems with this is that she was notorious for having some alcohol abuse issues, so she was giving up her sobriety to take on this role. She actually personally asked for a priest to be on set to help her and counsel her through some of the dark times that she would have while creating this film. Originally, she wasn't going to be credited because she didn't want to take away from Blair's performance, but she decided right whenever the movie was launching that she wanted to be credited, so that they ended up putting her in there, and she was basically going to sue if they didn't. So, I mean, why not? She did a great job. Fact number 2. Although the demon is not named in the film, we know some things about it. The demon is named Pazuzu, and we know this because this is actually what the script called it. Pazuzu is a demon that comes from Assyrian and Babylonian lore in modern-day Iraq. That's why the movie actually starts out here. It's the demon that brought famine during the dry seasons and locusts during the wet season. Basically, just a full-on asshole demon. And he was also known for being the king of the wind demons for this particular religion. Pazuzu is often depicted as a combination of an animal with human parts with his right hand pointing upwards and his left hand downwards, also with a full-on erect member all the time. Not threatening at all. Sometimes Pazuzu wasn't actually as bad as all this sounds. There were times where he would fight off Lamashtu, which is a demon who would cause miscarriages and problems during pregnancy and delivery for the women delivering those babies. So not always an asshole, just most of the time. Fact number 3. On deaths and on-set hauntings as well as serial murder. As with any production that deals with possession, hardcore Christianity, or demons, there's a lot of rumors that come out of this that things happen on set, and most of the time they're just played up by the studios. I generally am a hard skeptic on this sort of thing, but there are some interesting ones on this one. 2 of the actors that played in this movie actually died before the movie came out, the first one being Jack Mcgowan, who was Burke in this movie, the director, and Vasiliki Maliaros, who is Karis's mother. It's a very Greek name, so I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. There was one very weird fire that happened, destroying all of the interior of the house except for Regan's room. That's a 3-story set that caught on fire and caused a 3-week delay in shooting. That was a pretty major one. The set was often blessed by priests who would come through and just kind of throw a blessing out. They were asked to exorcise it, but they thought that would be a little bit too dramatic, so they just blessed the set. Didn't seem to work for some of the things like the fires and everything else. Max von Sydow's brother ended up dying. Lots of people connected to the set ended up dying. Some murders happened. And perhaps the scariest of all is actually a serial murder that worked on this movie. In the arteriogram scene, the bearded man who assists in the background is Paul Bateson. He was an X-ray technician at NYU Medical Center, and he was the one that got a small part because he actually knew what he was doing. Which, by the way, a lot of people were more disturbed by the medical scenes in this movie than the actual possession because they are messed up. Some of those old procedures, one of which you actually drain the cerebrospinal fluid from the brain and put in a bunch of air and other things so it shows lesions. I'm very glad we have better imaging technology. But Paul Bateson ended up being a very, very bad person. In 1979, he was convicted of murdering a movie critic and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. However, he bragged and was a suspect in the murders of 6 men whom he said he picked up in gay bars, had sex with them, and then murdered for fun, then dismembered their bodies and put them into plastic bags. This was in 1977-1978. They were known as the bag murders, and although investigators believed his story, they never actually prosecuted with them. He got out of prison in 2004. The whole story involving the bag murders was actually made into a movie called Cruising in 1980, which was also directed by William Friedkin. Fact number 4. This fact's all about the special effects. The Exorcist is absolutely stuffed full of amazing special effects and visual things that are just unparalleled for the time. Every single bit of this movie is done in camera. There isn't any rotoscoping, there's nothing that's going on there. For the vomiting sequences, Eileen Dietz doubled for Linda Blair. Makeup veteran Dick Smith, who headed up this entire project, rigged Dietz's facial contours with sheets and heat-formed plexiglass that were secured to the corners of her mouth and behind her head. This camouflaged a nozzle that basically went through and made it so that the apparatus could just vomit all over the place. These supply tubes were very discreet, and you can't really see them that well, despite the complete discomfort of wearing them. In the scene where the words "Help me" arise out of Regan's torso, the effect was achieved by constructing a foam latex replica of Linda Blair, then writing the words out with a paintbrush and cleaning fluid, then filming the words as they foamed from a chemical reaction. Dick Smith then heated it with a blow dryer, and this caused the chemical reaction to start to break down, so it just kind of like faded out. At this point, they just reversed the footage and kicked it back over. There was a scene that was not in the original movie, but is in the version you've never seen, is what it's called. It's the 2000 release, I believe, where she's spider crawling backwards down the stairs. The reason why this was removed wasn't because it didn't fit, as they originally said. It was because they had a hard time getting the wires out of the shot. One of the weirder things that is in this movie is that Max von Sydow had to be aged every single day. It was about a 3-hour process where they stretched latex and let it kind of go back, and that gave it the older, wrinkled skin look that looked so well for him there, and kind of looks like he is now as he plays Bloodraven in Game of Thrones. Apparently Campbell's soup isn't quite good enough for The Exorcist. The vomit was made from Anderson's split-piece soup. It was much thicker, it was mixed with oatmeal, and it made it so that it was just a much more viscous and visceral look for all of the scenes that involved just straight-up vomit. There are so many more in this movie, but like I said, I just appreciate that so much effort was put in by Dick Smith and some of the other people on this film to just make something that stands out even today. The doll might look a little bit dated in some ways, but whenever the first time you see that head spinning around and all that, it's absolutely incredible, and it's awesome. I don't care what anyone says about this movie, it has aged amazingly. Fact number 5. Director William Friedkin was kind of a dick to work for. Friedkin went through some extraordinary lengths to get realistic reactions from the cast. He fired off guns behind some of the actors to get sort of startled and surprised looks from them. Main actor Jason Miller, who played Father Karras, actually had a verbal altercation with him over this, saying, "I'm an actor, I know how to act surprised." So from that point on, there was a little bit less gun shooting on the set. When Father Dyer is attempting to administer last rites to Father Karras, Franklin was not satisfied with several takes. He took William O'Malley to the side and asked, "Do you trust me?" O'Malley said yes, and then just as he said that, Friedkin slapped him across the face and said, "Action." This is part of why he's so in the moment and why you can actually see his hands trembling. It's just kind of a startling thing, and then he fell into it from there. Ellen Burstyn mentions that the scream and facial reaction after being slapped by Regan were due to being pulled too hard by a harness. She's had back pain since that day. There are a lot of things that didn't quite go right, things that he sort of misled people on. He was telling some of the actors that they'd be hit in the chest with vomit, instead they get plastered in the face. Lots of things like that where disgust was a big part of what he was hoping for. So, he's very good. He made this, he made The French Connection, he did a lot of cool stuff. But man, it wasn't the best guy to work with. There's so much that's already been said about The Exorcist that you're not going to get here. The main thing that sticks out to me, even as a non-secular person, is that when this movie came out in the early 70s, almost everyone was a hard Christian, and they were afraid of this sort of thing. They felt it in their bones. People watched this movie and passed out. It was a much more visceral fear than we really get from movies today, because we don't have that underlying sort of faith, or most people don't, at least not to the level that it was in the 70s. And I think that made this perfect for the time. It's part of the reason why it was the first horror movie to be nominated for Best Picture. It ended up winning a few Oscars for Best Score and various other categories. Did not win the Best Picture, but it won a lot. And part of that is just because people were so intensely afraid of this movie. There was so much buzz around it. It was banned in the UK. People were literally having to get on buses to go see pirated copies. And just so many other things went into the legend of this movie. And it's well deserved. It's a movie that is standing up to the test of time as well as just being a generally good movie. It's so much smarter than a lot of exorcism movies out there. It plays with the idea that some of this might be a psychological condition, some of this might be faith-based, it could be whatever, but it does it so well, and I really enjoy it. So, like everybody else, it's got like a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. I enjoy this movie, I love it, I highly recommend it, and I hope you guys will take the time to check it out sometime, if you haven't already. Thank you for watching this, thank you so much for being part of Human Echoes. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Hit the bell if you want updates on this sort of thing. Check out our various social media, pretty much everywhere at Human Echoes. I'm Tony Southcott, at tsouthcott on Twitter. If you really want to support us, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/humanechoes. I hope you guys have an excellent week. We will see you soon with more 5 Facts.